has the wooden clapper to the bell, please return it because the candle doesn't work.
Well, good morning. And that was my line. Welcome back to First Unitarian Church. I am especially delighted to be back with all of you, coming on the heels of another magnificent summer forum led by the doctors Tim and Kathy Chambliss. Thank you so much. And welcome back, David Owens. I am relieved, as we all are, that this church can still call you back from the wilds of Romania. I hope your language skills are improving because, you know, that is a good language to know for whenever you're in Romania, of course. I hope the summer has treated all of you kindly. It has certainly been a scorcher in Utah. And something tells me that drilling and mining in 700,000 acres of pristine land in Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument will not exactly cool things off. I just have this feeling that's going to be the case. But this is one of the reasons it remains so vital for us to reconvene as a progressive congregation. Not only do we have our work cut out in keeping the moral voice of social justice and earth justice front and center, it's just so good to be connected with several hundred people in a congregation where we all feel the same rage and share the same anguish about where our nation is headed. And as a congregation, we provide strength for one another, and we are singularly focused on keeping hope alive. We're good for each other, providing a safe haven for these progressive ideals to flourish, to feed the spiritual well springs of our being, and to remind one another of the need for joy and celebration to enter our busy and often frustrated lives. It's a blessing for us to all come together again as a congregation, and I am forever grateful. Symbol of light, of knowledge, symbol of warmth and freedom. We light this chalice as a symbol of our faith. Here we gather to celebrate hope and the infinite possibilities of love. May we open our service this morning by opening our hymn books, please, to hymn number 38. Since it's been such a long time that we have sung together, I thought I'd start us on an easy one, just to kind of get into it. And one summer, many years ago, when I was still in college, my girlfriend invited me to join her family for a day in Asbury Park on the Jersey Shore. I felt a bit trepidatious, not about the family, but about the amusement park off the famous boardwalk there with endless arcades and cafes. Because there was also a roller coaster, and I had never been on a roller coaster my entire life because I don't enjoy heights or speed or feeling that I'm destined to certain death. I never went in for that. I kept these fears to myself, but within 5 minutes of arriving there, we were online to purchase tickets for the roller coaster. I tried to reassure myself that all I needed to do was to keep my eyes shut for the entire ride, hold on tightly, and make promises to God on how I would lead a better life. I was enormously relieved when the ride was over, for I didn't throw up. And her parents came over to where we were standing and said, let's be clear about one thing. Tom is never to go on a roller coaster again. And then they left. So I asked my girlfriend, what's that all about? And she said, you look like And she added, I didn't know people could actually turn that shade of green. It was not a fun date. This summer has felt a lot like riding a roller coaster. We're a bit sick to the stomach, a little green around the gills, a little fearful, and we have no clue when this terrifying ride will be over. So many dips and drops and swerves and frights have occurred just since the debacle at Helsinki. Was Helsinki this summer? Wow. This is a very long ride. But it also includes a black woman winning the gubernatorial nomination in Georgia, a transgender woman winning the gubernatorial nomination in Vermont, a federal judge threatening Jeff Sessions with contempt of court. It's a roller coaster, all right, but too many scary dips into fascism. Along with everyone who doesn't enjoy a roller coaster, let us pray. O Spirit of life and love, so many deadly fires have engulfed us this summer. It feels like the world is literally on fire. And maybe it is. Give us wisdom. Give us the wisdom to motivate our nation to work with every nation around the world in mitigating climate change. We may be too late, but give us the hope, at least, that our children and their children will live on a planet which is healing. Give us truth. Give us the truth to see the difference between our ability to make nuclear weapons and our right to make nuclear weapons and flaunt them. Give us justice. Give us the gift of justice so we don't interpret our ability to make money as though we have the right to make endless amounts of it. Give us goodness. Give us an understanding of goodness where we learn to be merciful while we live at one another's mercy. If we don't learn to be meek, will there be an earth for anyone to inherit? May we find the spirit of life within us, surging and glowing, guiding and sustaining, so that the strength we need and the compassion that the world needs will come to us and shine like a beacon in the night. Amen. How many of you have been on a vacation this summer or planning a vacation soon? How many of you? Quite a few. Wow, okay. You might find this reading particularly interesting because it gives a different perspective on vacations and something to think about. The trouble with vacations. Every day, my son spends a few minutes crying because we're not on vacation yet. I don't want to go to daycare, he wails. I want to go to the beach. At least he snaps out of it quick. All it takes is a toss in the air or a jelly sandwich, and he thinks life is pretty good again. Everyday life doesn't offer easy compensation for disappointment when you're all grown up. Or maybe grown-ups just aren't so quick to see it when it's there. The problem with vacations, which even a 3-year-old can sense, is that they make everything else look bleak by comparison. They make you say things like, I really need to get away. But get away from what? Your life? That doesn't seem healthy. In the United States, the average work week is 47 hours long. Last year, the average employee works full-time and gets paid vacation, took 17 days off. However you look at it, that's too little time off. But here's a thought experiment. Would you rather work more than 50 hours a week but have 5 weeks vacation a year? Or would you rather work 30 hours a week and never go on vacation again? I would give up vacations every time. Maybe that's because I have young children now and don't want to feel that I'm giving them the attention they need only in July and around major holidays. Maybe it's because traveling with them is so logistically complicated, I might as well be planning a land invasion, except half of my army is incontinent. Or maybe I'm just one of those people who find that vacations rarely live up to expectations anyway. I once traveled to a wedding and spent much of the trip in a funk because I wasn't married yet and wasn't sure yet if I wanted to be. I once caught a stomach bug while camping at the foot of the 3rd tallest mountain in the world. I once went to Acadia National Park to see the trees change color, but met only a bank of impenetrable fog like a case of cataracts. What if I had taken all the money and enthusiasm I'd put into the past 10 years of vacations and devoted it instead to making my own life, the real one, a little bit better? What would that look like? You know, the other problem with vacations is that once they're over, you have to go back home again. And you have to bring your dirty laundry back with you. Now, obviously, people need vacation days, just as they need parental leave and paid sick days, and I'm lucky to have them. But wouldn't it be great if we all lived in France and had 35-hour work weeks and such generous vacations that August was basically one long boozy brunch? And obviously travel is fun and interesting. Unless you're a brain-dead bore, you're going to get something out of it, of course. Here's the point. When I was growing up, my dad, whom I adore, worked all the time. He was one of the first people I knew to have a cell phone, and the only one who used it to check in with the office while riding the chairlift on ski vacations. But I have this one memory of him that I just can't shake. I was about 7 years old. We were playing wiffle ball, thwacking it across the backyard. And I remember it because it was an ordinary weekday night, not a holiday or vacation. I don't know why he was home so early, except that he wanted to be. And because it was a perfect summer night in New England, where every now and then there is a day when the air is such a perfect temperature that it feels like no temperature at all. When it's impossible to imagine that anywhere could be better than right where you are. This summer, I want more days like that. Well, first of all, again, welcome back, everyone. And if you are here for the very first time, or maybe once or twice, or you rolled in here during the Summer Forum series and decided to see what a more formal worship service is like, come and make sure you tap my shoulder or kick me in the shins and after the service, and we can get better acquainted and maybe answer a few questions. The announcements inside our order of service, actually in the back of the order of service, are all the announcements. Of course, we know this is just a smidgen of what is yet to come, but these are all very, very important announcements. I hope you take a look at various things around, activities around the church that are continuing through the summer or just getting started again. But in the center of our program is a very important, a full-page announcement. I can't remember the last time we had a full-page announcement. But it's extremely important, and it's all about connections. It's about an opportunity for people in the congregation, new people, those who've been around a short period of time, and those who've been perhaps around for decades. A wonderful avenue of connections. I mean, you can certainly connect with people on committee work, but you're kind of focused on the business. And you can, in a superficial way, kind of connect with people in the coffee hour. Hi, nice summer, move on. There's a need, I think, for us to connect more deeply with people within the congregation, because that is really the strength of a congregation. And in fact, the more human-to-human contact, understanding, sensitivity, connection, the stronger the congregation. And our vehicle for such a great opportunity for connection is our small group ministry experience. And we've been doing this for about, 12, 13 years, perhaps longer. On a once-a-month basis, we meet with people in our group, maybe 10 or 12 strong, and discuss fascinating topics. It's not a therapy group. It's not a book group. It's about us and our responses to some really interesting questions, and a golden opportunity to really get better acquainted on a real level. And so please take note of all the things you need to know about signing up for these groups. There's also a wonderful opportunity on September 9th at 6 o'clock to meet here and get to know who your group facilitator is and get to know others who are in small groups. And it's going to be a lot of fun. And it truly is a warm and extraordinarily rewarding experience. And if you have any questions at all about small group ministry, either see me or Sandy. Could you stand up so newer people know who you are? See Sandy in the coffee hour and sign up for a small group experience. The offering will now gratefully be received, and a chance for everyone to greet one another and say, "Welcome back." In 1916, Carl Sandburg wrote a 6-line poem with 2 verses. The first verse was, "The fog comes on little cat feet." And the second verse follows with, "It sits looking over harbor and city, on silent haunches and then moves on. The fog comes on little cat feet. It sits looking over harbor and city on silent haunches and then moves on. Now, this poem lay at the heart of a simple ritual with which we began each morning in July. Mary and I returned to our beloved town of Bolinas and began each day contemplating the fog which sits looking over the shoreline of this coastal Northern California town. And the cat feet actually seemed discernible in the grayness of the sky, where the sky and the ocean merge in color bearing the same value. Our dog, Bo, likes the ritual each morning as we head to the beach. Dogs are quite the legacy in this town. They roam freely, and each day they leave their homes up on the mesa and head towards the small village where they gather in front of Smiley's, the oldest tavern still in service in the state of California. And this is where they hold their canine caucus each morning, an important way for them to begin their day. And across from Smiley's, we pick up our coffee to take to the beach, while Bo joins his comrades in conference. He soon catches up to us and partakes in our habit of sitting on a bench right where the beach begins, overlooking an inlet that flows between the lagoon and the Pacific. Seals are busy gliding past, getting their breakfast, and will sometimes tease a dog that thinks he might be able to catch them. So Mary, Bo, and I, all on the same bench, contemplating the gray horizon, sometimes sharing a freshly baked blueberry muffin, a favorite of Bo's, we discovered a few summers back. In fact, it must be the hope of a blueberry muffin that entices Bo away from his canine friends who congregate in front of Smiley's. Not a word is exchanged among us as we sit spellbound by a haunting light that filters through the grayness and which is refracted differently each morning. And we know the Sandburg poem to be true because the fog does move on, and the sun will ultimately prevail, usually before lunch. When finished with our contemplation and meditation, we continue to walk the beach, which kind of arcs around towards our house. We pass fishermen, people practicing Tai Chi, folks on the edge of the shore just singing spontaneously to the ocean. Some are doing crazy modern dance movements right at the shoreline. Then you'll see a toddler discovering the undertow for the first time. Everyone has her and his own relationship to the grayness which looks upon us on its silent haunches. Let me take you on a brief, meandering walk from the bench, which is right on the beach, going back through town. You walk along Wharf Road, which bends leftward by a few shops and art galleries. And then on the right, you have Smiley's, and on the left, the place where we pick up our coffee, which is an extension of the Coast Cafe. And next to the cafe is the Bolinas Shrine, a beautiful monument comprised of stones and shells and flowers and poems and notes to the dear ones who have died. And next door is the town's general store, where we have graduated now to the point of putting our groceries on credit. I've never had that experience in my life. Go to the store, charge it, and walk out. Wow. And then you pass a driveway leading to the natural food store where we're out in a huge yard. You'll find the Bolinas Free Box. That's a little warehouse for used clothing and toys to be taken at will by the poor. The Free Box never closes. I walk a little further across from the new wine bar. You're in front of the library, where Latino day workers gather each morning in hopes of a little income to see them through to the morrow. And the road then bends north by the old historic Presbyterian Church. And I attended a service there this summer. There was the minister, the organist, the head usher, and I. I think the minister was glad to see me. So we could then proceed with the liturgy that included an antiphonal prayer said back and forth between her and me. At coffee hour, and yes, there was a coffee hour prepared by the usher, the minister said she liked my speaking voice, but failed to comment on my hymn singing. I thought I had to hold up my end. I said I liked her sermon. It felt as though she was speaking just to me. And eventually we got around to the ministry here in Salt Lake City. And we agreed that it was a tough assignment to do ministry in Bolinas. There really was no need for a church in Paradise. Once you pass the church about a quarter of a mile up, there's a fork in the road with a lot of vegetation and trees growing wildly. And a family of foxes lived there. You see them wandering around from time to time, although they wisely stay away from the caucus in front of Smiley's. To the left of the fork, you go to the beach, where once upon a time, the old Jefferson airplane had their home. But I'm going to take you to the right of the fork as the road begins to climb steeply at a pretty good pace. A little ways up on the right is where our home is located. And climbing further up, we pass homes on the left and a lot of fences that block the view of the ocean. This is the road that takes you up to the mesa. And about halfway there, you'll find an opening for about 150 feet. And there's this unobstructed view of the water with nothing but a guardrail to keep you from toppling over. And so now you're high enough to look down upon the pelicans and sandpipers and seagulls swooshing along the coast, scavenging for their food. Their favorite food are the newly hatched anchovies, which draw birds from what seems to be hundreds of miles away. But that opening, high above the ocean, is where the mix of humanity comes together to behold a singular beauty. Everyone stops there to meditate before this vastness, Theologians may refer to it as the numinous, or sometimes they may want to call it the mysterious tremendum. But everyone, regardless of their personal history and culture, everyone is incapable of walking past without stopping, looking out and gazing intently. And then the silence is interrupted as a brown-skinned teenager on his skateboard speeds down the hill and screeches to a halt to look out on the sea. And a guy in a new Lexus drives up, stops, parks illegally, gets out to stare in wonder. An old hippie in his VW van will stop and catch the view. An unsuccessful day worker will walk up the hill, stop, and stare at the fierce surf pounding the shore and cliffs. And actual surfers carrying their boards, anxious to get to the water, still can't stop. They can't help themselves but stop at this lofty vantage point and gaze. So everyone is compelled to stop. Elegantly dressed men with British accents, young moms with their babies, homeless people, young and old, strong and frail, house painters, cleaning ladies, academics carrying their books, construction workers, hard hats, visitors, and townies, all can't help but stop cold in their tracks to behold. So, what is beauty really? I thought to myself. We all know that beauty has been labeled indefinable because ostensibly it depends on the eye of the beholder. But that doesn't seem to apply here. The object of beauty captures the eyes of everyone. Plotinus, a Greek philosopher of the ancient world, gave much thought to beauty. See, beauty belonged to a set of virtues together with goodness, truth, wisdom, justice. These classic virtues invited all the great minds to offer their opinions. In fact, you could never be considered a great mind unless you spoke eloquently upon the meaning of truth, wisdom, goodness, justice, and beauty. We have either lost the need to address these qualities, or we just don't have any great minds anymore walking in our midst. I think we need a resurgence of great minds more than ever. St. Augustine wrote about the relationship between beauty and delight. Plotinus got into the nuts and bolts of beauty by proclaiming that beauty must induce a spirit of wonder, longing, and love, and also a trembling that is all delight. And frankly, I've never before associated delight with beauty. But maybe it seems to fit. And I think it fits well here, this concept of beauty, because it seems to apply to the people in Bolinas, spellbound by the various shades of rolling blues and greens that extend endlessly, forever. Two contemporary philosophers, David Hume and Immanuel Kant, both agreed that something was somehow lost when treating beauty merely as a subjective state. That would result then in people using words and reason to explain their point of view. But beauty contains meaning beyond language. Language is insufficient to explain or describe what is being viewed. And through the centuries, the idea of beauty seems to always return to some basics. That beauty creates a different view of the world. Just think about that for a second. Beauty creates a different view of the world. It makes us feel positive, even grateful. Two more comments about beauty. First, Crispin Sartwell, in his book, 6 Names of Beauty, published in 2004, points out that when we attribute beauty to the night sky, for instance, we're not simply reporting a state of pleasure in ourselves. We're celebrating the real world. And I like that notion of beauty because its premise is that beauty is, in fact, intrinsic to the real world. And I think it implies how beauty gets obscured in our fast-paced lives of routine and unawareness. We then actually miss the beauty. And secondly, Alexander Nahamis wrote in 2007 in his book, Only a Promise of Happiness, that beauty not only invites us to explore and interpret, it requires us to explore and interpret. His point being that beauty is not to be regarded as an instantaneously apprehensible feature on the surface. We must wrestle with it somehow. We must go deeper so we can perhaps extract the power of its value in life. I think a case can be built that beauty transcends our usual interfacing with the world, and that it has a quality that certainly exceeds a mere subjective view. Beauty engages us in a different view of the world that induces wonder and trembling delight. And according to Santayana, beauty is not a perception. Okay? Beauty is not a perception, but an emotion, a reflection of our appreciative nature. So I was overwhelmed by observing the universality of beauty from the vantage of an overlook from a Bolinas road. Far from being subjective, beauty underscored our common humanity. Whatever may be our differences in terms of nationality, race, ethnicity, religion, language, economics, it all dissolves into a oneness as sentient human beings, all of us, all living, breathing, feeling, capable of experiencing pain and suffering, yet mesmerized by delight and pleasure in seeing the world differently. It's so easy in these times today to forget our common humanity. We are a deeply divided people. but beauty as experienced in contemplation, beholding the vast array of colors, and in this case, the ocean's endless wonder. This all somehow erases the bubble of individual experiences. Now, people wandering along in their usual habits are literally stopped by beauty, gaze quietly upon it, and may or may not explore further and interpret. And they continue then either up or down that road in Bolinas, changed, perhaps. I thought, gee, I wish I could conduct an exit interview. I'd stop them as they were leaving this beautiful place. I'd stop them and say, what emotion was created inside you? Was there delight for you? Did you see the world differently? Will this now change your habits? Did you feel the wonder of a common humanity? Well, I don't think anyone would have said, wow, yeah, we're one big happy family, aren't we? Instead, I think they would refuse to answer because the meaning of beauty lies beyond language. But this is where my hope lies. Not that beauty can impact everyone regardless where they are on the hierarchy of class, wealth, and education. Not that a common humanity can be wrought from a different view of the world. But my hope stirs in that beauty remains among the ultimate values. Beauty, wisdom, goodness, truth, justice. These can never be isolated or even separated. I mean, where does beauty end and truth begin? And doesn't beauty blur the lines into goodness, which shines a light upon justice and then points to wisdom? They're also integrated. Now, these classic virtues may not be presently apparent in our destructive behavior towards one another or in our indifference to the earth and sky. But at least beauty is still capable of stopping us in our tracks and prompts us to appreciate a different world. And since we have not buried beauty entirely, then surely wisdom and goodness and truth and justice have not been forsaken either. Ignored, perhaps, but not discarded fully. They can still be retrieved. And these are the values that carry our hope. So be it. Can we conclude our service, turning our hymn books, please, to hymn number 326. tossing and troubled world. May the love of beauty, truth, wisdom, goodness, justice comfort us, lead us, and renew our spirits.